Babe, do you know what I love?
What?
When my man tastes like a fruit salad.
What man?
But for real, if I had one, I would be shoving Popstar down his throat.
Popstar is doctor formulated.
It's not just a random gas station pill?
No, the company is mainly ran by women who want bigger loads.
That's all we want.
But more importantly, it's what the men want. Studies have shown that men really are caring more about their load size and load taste these days.
This stuff is vegan, it's non-GMO, fair trade, made in America, and it's all natural.
Pop a couple pills of these Popstar pills, honey, and watch your splooge expand to the next dimension.
And if you're not happy, you got a 60-day money-back guaranteed.
And you know we're not just saying this for nothing. You know that we got the plug, and we're going to give you the discount. So go into Popstar and type in that code, boy. You know it's online forever. For not 10% off, 20% off. Can you believe it? Neither can we.
Big loads forever. Get them now.
Slurp them down.
Are you sure you want to post that? It's gonna be online forever.
Guys, we're so excited. We have an absolute legend in so many domains on the pod today, and I'm just so excited for this conversation. She is a long-term videographer, erotic photographer, veteran of the industry, daughter of Playboy's first and only female photographer, Holly Randall.
Hello.
We're so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
I think that you have maybe no one else has the lens that you do on this industry.
Literally.
So specific. There's only one, and it's you. And we're just so glad to have you here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do have a pretty unique view, I guess. I've seen I've been in the industry for 25 years. I grew up around it. I've seen all the changes that have happened. I've experienced, the ups and downs of the industry, scary things as well, since I was a kid. So yeah, I have a unique perspective. I will say that for sure.
I have so many questions. So yeah, can we talk about your childhood and what that was like?
Sure.
And wherever you want to take
it. So I was born in 1978.
Great year.
Great year to be born. In Hollywood. Actually, that's why my name is Holly.
Welcome back. Oh my God.
Yeah. Hollywood Presbyterian. And my mother is Suze Randall, who, is pretty much is considered one of the only women that was working in the adult industry at the time, in the 70s. So she started off as a model. And then she met my dad, and she started shooting behind the scenes pictures of her girlfriends, at fashion shows and stuff like that. And then she started shooting for Page 3 of the Sun newspaper, which was kind of a big thing over in England. I should say my mom is English. And then she ended up shooting this woman named Lillian Mueller, who was, I believe she was her roommate for a while too. And she submitted the pictures to Playboy. And Hugh Hefner loved her and was like, this woman's incredible. We're going to fly her over. Fuck you, Suze. Who are you? And, we have photographers. We don't need you. We just want the model. My mom was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. I guess I'm going to just send her pictures to Penthouse instead.
Oh.
And they'll fly me over to shoot her. And then Hefner was like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay. We'll give you a shot, right? So he flew Lillian and my mom over. My mom shot Lillian. Lillian actually became Playmate of the Year, I think 1974, 5. And my mom ended up becoming the first female staff photographer for Playboy. So she wasn't the first woman who ever shot for Playboy. That was Bunny Yeager, actually. But she was the first woman that was hired on as a staff,
full-time.
Full-time. So she worked there for a couple of years, and then she wrote her book, Suze, which we actually just wrapped up a Kickstarter project to relaunch this memoir. As you know, you were there. You were kind of part of the social media campaign, Sydney.
That was a wild day. Your mother is so wild. I had heard about her from Alan, and I was just like, this lady is a kook.
She is one of a kind, for sure. So she wrote this book, and that in combination with a few other things, basically ended her relationship with Hugh Hefner. In fact, he spat in her face and had her marched out of the mansion by security. He was so angry with her.
Because of her book, right?
Because of her book. Because she had written a book and he didn't know. She thought he knew because she was like kind of telling his secretary, but I don't think the secretary ever told him.
She was probably scared too.
Yeah, probably. And I think like maybe she was like, oh, everyone's writing a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like a tell-all. And one of the things was that like you weren't supposed to talk about like what happens in the grotto at the Playboy Mansion. And then my mom, you know, slept with half. I mean, my mom slept with everybody, but I think she like said he had a fat bottom, which, and I think she like said he wasn't that very good in bed, and I think like maybe that was what set him off. I don't know. Anyways, he was not happy, and so he kicked her out, and she had met Larry Flint at Hef's party. Now, Larry Flint had these photos of Hugh Hefner not with his wife at the time, who I think was Bobby Benton, with another woman. And he was kind of like threatening Hef that he would publish them. And Hef didn't want him to, of course. So Hef like invited Larry over like for a party to try to maybe like make good with him. But then he also like just ignored him. And so my mom like found Larry Flint like sitting alone like at the bar. And she just like went up to him and introduced herself and they started chatting and they just like hit it off right away. So when she was kicked out of Playboy, she went over to work for Hustler. Now, one of the things that she had done for herself when she worked at Playboy was she shot herself for Playboy. And that's like kind of her only Playboy spread. I mean, she was at that time not a model anymore. She was a photographer, but she still obviously like harped on the fact that she was like the sexy woman. And so she did this whole like self-shooting layout. And of course, no cell phones at the time. So it's like her like with a cable release, like doing all these sexy poses. It's really cute.
I've seen some of them. It's so cool. You can literally see the little like handheld.
Yeah. Because the whole thing is like, it's like Playboy photographer shoots herself, right? That was the whole point. It was like, here I am going to shoot myself, which I think is also like probably the only time anyone shot themselves for Playboy, right? I mean, maybe there's somebody else, but she was definitely the first, right? So then she goes and she works for Hustler for a couple of years. In the meantime, she shot herself also for Hustler as a kind of like cheeky kind of nudge to Playboy. And Hefner put on the cover, Playboy photographer shows pink, because my mom went a little more explicit with the Hustler photos. Hef was not happy about that either. My mom's also like sitting on like huge dildo chairs. Really bizarre photos. And you know, it might be strange for one to see pictures of their mother sitting on a dildo chair naked, but you know, that's just my life.
Many different strokes.
Yeah. So she worked at Hustler for a few years and then she went independent and started shooting for Penthouse, High Society, Club, like all the men's magazines, right? This is when like men's magazines were actually everything, thing, right?
And are you around at this point? Are you alive?
I am alive.
Okay.
I'm alive at this point. So I was actually born while my mom was working at Hustler, and my birth was announced in Hustler magazine.
What?
And there's a picture of my mom. I'll send it to you guys if you want. I actually found all the original chromes of me nursing in a sling while she's shooting.
Wow.
It's a pretty iconic photo. And there's also a picture of me and my mom with like Larry holding me as a baby.
Oh my God. Do you still have those?
Yeah.
And then you're like newborn, like fresh. Yeah. And you're in Hustler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So what's so funny too is Hustler's 50th anniversary is coming up actually. And they're going to do like a whole thing on me in the magazine about like
you've been in it
connection to Hustler.
Yeah.
It's weird, right?
Oh my God.
So yeah, that's kind of my history. And, you know, despite all of that, I had a really normal childhood.
Really?
I'm the oldest of 3. And, you know, my parents were wonderful parents. I had a great childhood. They were very attentive, supportive. They sent me to good schools. I rode horses. They sent me to cotillion, which was like an interesting
What's that
thing. It's like
Manners. school.
manners,
Etiquette.
Oh.
dancing, and etiquette, and
Oh.
it's like a whole
Ugh, I
Is that
always
like-
wanted to do that.
Is that like finishing school? Is that what
kinda,
that is?
yeah. Like
Okay.
you wear like white gloves, and you
Oh.
learn how to do the waltz and like all this stuff, and you learn how to like knife and fork and how to ask someone to dance, and
That's where all
this
the
whole
like
thing.
kids were like meeting their, first boyfriends and girlfriends when I was
Yeah.
growing up. I was so jealous of everyone at Cotillion. I was like, it seems fun.
But it was just funny because I mean, and this is kind of like I actually have a great story about Cotillion. This is a great example of how like these two worlds kind of collided in a bizarre way. So, my mom's English and she comes from like a English middle class family. And so, a lot of things that were important to her were like manners, table manners, like I hold my knife and fork correctly, like all that kind of stuff. And so she sent me to Cotillion. I went to Beverly Hills Cotillion, which is just full of a bunch of rich kids. And like we weren't rich. Like we were, like middle class. Like my parents did fine, but we weren't like Beverly Hills rich. And so I remember they had bought me this one like nice dress, but I only had one, right? So I'd wear the same nice dress to Cotillion every week. And the kids would make fun of me because it was like I wore the same dress and they always had a new gown. And we're talking like gowns,
Mhm.
And so I told my mom that, I needed a new dress. And she was like, we're not buying you a new dress. That dress was $40, which is a lot back then.
Mhm.
And so she's like, well, here, we'll find you something else. So my mom, the one like mainstream job that she did was she shot for a catalog called Swimsuit International, not Swimsuit Illustrated, Swimsuit International. And it was like terrible, cheesy 80s. This is like the middle of the 80s, right? So just bad 80s clothes, like super, think like trashy lingerie, but in the 80s and like very bad. Like it was like that. And so she would bring like the clothes back and like give them to me, and they were like not inappropriate for like a 10-year-old, but whatever. I would wear them because I loved like fancy lingerie. And I don't know how she talked me into this, but she brought home a pink spandex jumpsuit, like long arms, long legs with a little skirt, bright fucking neon pink spandex jumpsuit, and sent me to Cotillion in that. I don't know like why I agreed. And the woman, Gail, who ran it, took one look at me, was fucking horrified, and threw me out of class and was like, this is not appropriate. You cannot wear this. And of course, there's no cell phones in the day. So, I went and I sat outside,
Oh
on the columned steps, listening to the classical music, like drifting in from the open door, feeling very alone,
And your
very
pink jumpsuit.
different, very sad in my pink spandex jumpsuit because like I was dressed inappropriately for Cotillion. So that was kind of like this moment where I was like, I don't really belong in this
Mhm.
world,
Mhm.
and like my parents are kind of like not really seeing that.
Mhm.
I mean, they were just trying to like do the best that they could for their kid, right? But that was kind of like an interesting experience.
Was that the end of the Cotillion career?
Probably?
What age like how old were you when you were going to
I think I was probably like 10, 11, 12, something like that.
right in the cusp of puberty?
Yeah.
That's a
yeah,
hard
like-
time.
Yeah, right? Like,
Even if you're not showing up in a pink jumpsuit at Cotillion.
I
Right?
wish I had a photo of me in that.
Me
man, 'cause
too.
That is like,
Are we talking flare pants or are they straight leg?
they were a straight leg.
Wow, that is.
But it
somehow
had like
nice.
that little ruffle skirt,
Okay, like a little peplum situation.
Yeah, it was kind of like ice skaters,
Uh-huh.
Like imagine.
I'm picturing stirrups. Like the stirrup
maybe.
legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, maybe. White flats. I remember I was wearing white flats at them.
Jesus,
Yeah.
Mom.
I don't know how she talked me into wearing that. That was nuts.
Learned a lot that day.
Yeah. So how did she go about like sexual education growing up?
Mm.
Was it just like right off the bat, everything was normal and you didn't even have to like learn the birds and the bees? Or how did she tackle that?
So this is like the strange kind of dichotomy of my parents was I never got an official birds and the bees talk.
Mm-hmm.
They never like sat me down and were like, okay, this is how sex works. And like, these are
Mm.
the things you should know. However, they also didn't like hide what they did for a living. They, were nudists, so they didn't wear clothes a lot of the time. They told me that the like human body was beautiful, especially a woman's body was beautiful, was nothing to be ashamed of. Sex wasn't like a dirty thing, but we just like didn't really like talk about it. And it wasn't. I don't think it was something that was off, like that I couldn't have. I think if I'd come to my mother and been like, "Hey, will you tell me about sex?" Like she would have told me.
Mm-hmm.
But she just never like sat down. And I think back then too, parents didn't necessarily know that these were conversations that they should have with their kids. It wasn't really talked about, Like these days we have so much information. We're like, do this at, I'm a mom, and like the amount of like information at my disposal in terms of like how I should teach my kids this and what stage they should be at this age and all this kind of stuff is crazy. But back then they didn't have that. I do remember though they did give me a book called Where Do I Come From? And I gleaned a lot of information from that book, and I loved that book. And that book was really cool. And actually I would recommend it for parents who want to. I'm sure there's better ones by now, but it was a pretty good book at that stage.
I was just obsessed with learning about sex and puberty. I just like was so ready to be told the truth, I feel like. And I felt like I could just feel that everybody was lying. And it's strange that like the one thing you lie to your kids about is like how they got here in this very confusing dimension in this body. It's like everything came from sex, and it's the one thing we like try to shy away from with our children. And I think that's.
Were you raised in like a pretty like religious or strict household, like conservative? Yeah,
like New England Catholic. So
see, I didn't get that. Like no one ever lied to me, but like also no one ever like sat down and offered up the information. Maybe they thought like I would ask them when I was ready.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, for me, like I was asking, and I was ready to learn. Either I'm learning it from them or the playground, like whoever kid at school has older siblings who like told them. And now it's like if you don't tell your children, they're going to learn from the internet, which I don't remember which porn star it was. Maybe Aza Akira, but she said like you don't learn how to drive from watching NASCAR. And it's like a similar thing with like you don't learn about sex from porn, but a lot of people do. And like I ended up, I think, learning a lot about sex from porn.
Yeah.
Which is why we're here today, probably. Yeah. So what about you? I know you were a curious little.
I was curious. Yeah, it was just making me think about how I would just like, I'd lob it to my parents. I was like giving them every opportunity. I'd be like, where do babies come from? I remember asking, and they just wouldn't tell me, but I remember asking my mom if I was pretty little when I asked this, but I was like, does it leave a hole when the baby comes out? Because I thought they just like burst through the stomach. And she was like, kind of. And looking back, I'm like, that was a great moment that could have gone somewhere else.
Opportunity. Oh man.
So you were raised in an atheist household as well.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom, I think, was kind of like more agnostic. She just didn't really think about it. But my dad was like a staunch atheist. He was like, people who believe in Jesus are stupid. Like that kind of, he was very much like an intellectual and a scholar. And he was very like into science. And he just didn't buy any of that religious shit. He just thought it was nonsense.
Is he British too?
He's South African.
Okay.
But he lived in London with my mom for 10 years.
Okay.
So
honorary
like,
Brit. Kind
yeah, like he kind of had like, I think his accent, if you heard him, you would have thought, I think, more that he was English. His South African accent had softened, except when he got angry. Then it would
come out.
Like, Rahman.
Full Afrikaans comes out.
Yeah. But so like religion was definitely not something that ever entered into my stratosphere. I remember like the first church service I ever went to, I was kind of like tricked into. I went to like a baptism. I think a baptism for a friend's baby. And then it turned into a church service. And I was like, what's happening? What's going on here?
Oh.
And he was like, oh, there's a service. And I was like, wait, do I have to stay for this? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, did you trick me? He's like, yeah.
Oh my God.
I was like, okay.
And then you found God.
I found a nice soft shoulder to fall asleep on. No, yeah, it was that was kind of bizarre, but it's actually interesting because I've had to reevaluate my relationship with like a higher power, as they say, like when I got sober, because it's interesting. Like a lot of people are raised with a certain belief in God, and if they have to get to a place where they need to find some spirituality to, you know, help them through whatever they're going through, they have like this idea of this like punishing God that they don't relate to from their childhood. And for me, I just like, I didn't have anything.
Fresh, clean slate.
But also like, you know, this idea of like that it just wasn't there and everything was science and nothing like mattered and there was no design to the universe and it was all chaos and like good luck.
Yeah, either way, it's like dogmatic, I guess, and can be a limiting belief system, whether you're like full Jesus or full science.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, I do envy people who are religious in some sense, in the sense that, like, it gives them comfort or like a belief that there is something after they die. So, like, there must be something wonderful about believing, like, if you lose a loved one, that like they're with like this loving entity and that you will be with them someday and you will live in paradise. That's kind of a nice way to go through life, to be honest, you know?
So how did they talk about, well, there's like the birds and the bees talk, and then like the what happens when, you know, grandma's gone, what happened to her? Like there's life and there's the death, big conversations that parents have with kids. So what do atheist parents tell you about it?
That's a good question. So my father died last year in January and we were really close and it was like really hard for me. Sorry, I might cry, but it's okay. Like, don't worry. And he had Parkinson's and like we knew like his health was deteriorating, right? And I actually moved back in with my parents to help take care of him. And I was sitting with him, I remember, outside by the pool. And my dad is like, we had a very like special relationship that I think like he didn't really have with other people. And he was not always like the easiest person to talk to about like deep and meaningful things because, you know, he grew up in like the strict South African household and, you know, you just didn't like talk about your feelings. A lot of people, I think his age, are kind of like that. And I asked him, I said, are you afraid of dying? I just said it because I was like, I needed to know that he was okay with death. And if he was okay with dying, that would make it easier for me to accept his death, right? If he was afraid, that would be hard for me. And he said that he wasn't, that he'd lived like a really great long life, which he had. And he was like, you know, I just believe that we are just a blip in time, you know, just this moment in the universe. And then we go back into the universe and we're just space dust. And we're just like a part of the dirt and the flowers and all of that stuff. And that was comforting to him. And we'd had discussions like this before because he also was really into like astronomy and astrology. One of the things that he studied extensively was like Roman astrology. He wrote like a novel on Nero that he worked on for years.
Oh my God.
He was really
such
into
dad
all of
things.
that stuff.
I love that.
I know. I know when that meme came around about like
The Roman
often do
Empire.
men think about the Roman Empire, my brother and my sister sent it to me. They're like, it's dad, you know?
Oh.
This happened like right after his death too, so it was kind of funny. Nobody knew more about the Roman Empire than my father. And it was just funny because it also, I think, is a good example of like the kind of person that he was, that he felt comforted being a part of like this grand like design, this universe, you know, this like comings and going. And he was like, being a blip in time was like, oh, like he liked that, that he was just a small part in this great intricate web of fucking eternity. And I really love that, but I like could not relate because I'm like, I don't want to be a blip in time. Like I want like I want the universe to revolve around me. Like I want to be like, I want to live for, like, I don't want to be like this little moment. I don't want to like not matter. Like, how is that comforting for you? But I think like for him, it kind of like takes the weight off your shoulders. And, I don't know. You're just a part of everything. You're woven into the fabric of the universe. And I just want to be like a bright, shiny fucking button or something like that. So it was a comforting moment. But it was also like one that I couldn't relate to. And it was a great example of like how different we are. And maybe, you know, I should strive to be more of a part of like the fabric of the universe and less of just like, I'm a big shiny button. Everything should revolve around me. I don't know. It was like a weird moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of those can exist at the same time. Bright, shiny button, but just for a little while, you know? And I think there's something deeply spiritual, too, about his outlook.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, a lot of atheists are spiritual. It sounds like he probably was with the astronomy and the astrology. But yeah, I do find comfort in the Carl Sagan pale blue dot, like we're nothing type vibe. I think that can be really comforting, especially when thinking about the very temperamental existence that we all have here.
See, I still can't find comfort in that, like at all. I mean, I think about death way more than I should. And the idea of non-existence to me is terrifying.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Has it always been like that?
Yes.
Huh. What is it about it that scares you?
I just can't imagine not being what is not existing? Like it's just nothing? How can you be nothing? How can there be nothing? Like how is that? How can I be here right now, sitting, talking to you, feeling this chair, like drinking this water, and then tomorrow I'm just nothing. Like what the fuck is that?
Is it so it's kind of the like unknowingness, mystery of it, like trying to grapple with it and understand it and not being able to, sort of?
Maybe, yeah, but I think also just I maybe just the idea of nothingness is like really scary to me. There always needs to be something, which probably says a lot about like me and my personality. I'm not very good at like relaxing, you know, and just like breathing, you know, like meditating. I mean, when you were on my podcast earlier and you were talking about meditating for 2 hours, and I went to yoga this morning, you know, and I love yoga. I love meditating. I'm not great at it. Like, but 2 hours, I don't think I could do 2 hours.
2 hours of nothingness?
2 hours of, now imagine that for eternity.
I think the nothingness that we're all talking about, not to like put my own, you know, beliefs on existence and stuff, but I think we're talking more about bodilessness than nothingness, because I don't think the soul just like disappears, but the vehicle that the soul is in, the body does like eventually tire out. But yeah, like where does the soul go? I think that's such an interesting conversation, and I've always thought that atheists just think it's like all goes black, but I really like how your dad said about like it kind of, he like composts back into the ether basically. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that? So my daughter's 3, and it's weird because she, you know, my dad died a year ago, a year and a month ago today exactly.
Wow.
Whoa,
January
chills.
16th. And my daughter brings him up like a lot. And I think she saw him like being wheeled out of the house. Like, so he fell and he had a traumatic head injury, and that's what he died from. And she saw him being wheeled out of the house when the ambulance came, and she saw him fall all the time because he was always falling. And, you know, we kind of knew that was probably going to be what was going to end everything. But she brings him up a lot, and she'll just say like the strangest things, like, she called him Opa because that's Afrikaans for grandfather.
Oh.
And she would say like, where's Opa? And I'm like, well, you know, honey, Opa's not here anymore. And she would look at me and she'd be like, Opa's here sometimes. And I was like, ooh. And then the craziest thing was, so we live on this ranch. You've been there.
Beautiful.
And so I had her in my car, and I had pulled up to the office. I was loading something in the back of my car. And Sydney, you remember, like, there's that meadow below, right? Which is where we did the reading. And Violet was in the back of the car. I was loading something in, and I heard her, like, saying something. And I come over. I'm like, hey, honey, what is it? And she goes, oh, no, nothing. I was just talking to Opa. And I was like, oh, Opa, you see Opa? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, where's Opa? She's like, oh, he's down there. And I was like, oh, Opa's in the meadow? And she's like, yeah, Opa's in the meadow. I'm like, well, what did he say to you? She goes, oh, he didn't say anything. He was just peeing. Now, my father used to pee outside all the time. Like it's like a family joke that he would always pee outside. Like didn't matter if you just met him, he'd be showing you around the ranch and he'd just like whip his dick out and like just pee. Like it wasn't like a thing like where he was trying to be weird, but like he just peed outside. He would like leave the house instead of going to the bathroom in the house. He'd walk outside and pee outside. It was like his thing. But like I don't think my daughter knew that because I don't think he ever like did it in front of her. Like she wasn't walking a lot when but so the fact that she said that and I was just like, you know what, that would be something that my dad would do. Like if he was to come back as a ghost, which he didn't believe in, he would just come back and pee outside to like as it, you know, that would be his sense of humor. So I don't know. It's like a weird moment.
That's well, it's good for the plants, you know.
Yeah,
he's the man of the earth.
Ghost piss, the best fertilizer.
Seriously.
Well, I feel bad that I didn't introduce you also as a podcaster, Holly. Like obviously that's such a main part
I
of what
almost
you do.
walked out when you said that. So
Could not
I'm
believe
glad you just brought that up.
Just an amazing photographer. I'm out of here.
Bright and shiny button and also podcaster.
Yeah, and you've been doing it for 7 years?
Yeah, so August 2017 is when I did released my first episode, I think. So
Ahead of the wave.
that's coming up on 7 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, coming up on 7 years. So pretty crazy.
How do you feel about the state of podcasting these days?
I mean, I think it's funny because I remember when I got into it, I kind of thought like, oh, like I'm kind of late to the game.
LOL.
Podcast.
Oh my God.
I was like, well, you know, people told my parents that when they first launched their internet site, which was back in 1998. So, you know, like
That they were
They
late
told
to
them
the
they
game.
were late to the game?
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they were one of the first, like, you know, like photography. I think my mom might have been the first erotic photographer to launch a website,
Yeah.
actually. Like, we launched, I think, a month before or after Google. Like, that's how.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was porn, right?
Yeah.
And you shot for her.
Mhm.
How old were you?
So I started working for my mom when I was 20.
Wow.
But
That is bananas.
yeah.
And one of the first pornographic sites ever, right?
Yes. So we used to license our stuff. Initially showed up on Danny's hard drive, which was Danny Ash, who was this like big boobed woman. Her claim to fame was she was the most downloaded woman back then. And she just started a site where she would post her content, but then she would license like other people's stuff because, you know, they didn't like know how to build a website. Like nobody knew, right? So she started the site and she would just people would she would buy their content and she would post it on their site. And then people started to realize like, oh, I could start my own site and sell it on my own. And my parents were like one of the first people to do that.
Wow.
So
Pioneers. That is so wild.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Seriously.
I feel like there's just been such a huge increase of podcasting that has to do with the adult industry in the last couple of years, maybe since COVID, definitely big boom of that, like the porn casting vibe.
Yeah.
And I like that your, I guess, like mission behind it is to go deeper than just the
Virality.
yeah, and like to have real conversations outside of good clips, because a lot of adult podcast clips I see, ours included, honestly, like it's like all about that 10 seconds of chaos to get people to watch more. And while that's just like how it is, because there's just so much out there, you really got to grip people. I really admire that you're very focused on like keeping things real.
Well, but yeah, yes. Well, first of all, thank you.
Thoughts?
But I do like, it's like the same for me, like what you were saying. I mean, I definitely put, you know, clips out there that I try to get, because it's a flooded market. There's a lot of people out there, and it doesn't matter that I've been around for 7 years. Like it's still hard to compete with, you know, also too, like it's hard. I mean, you guys know, like on YouTube, like, cause YouTube, like they love you, but they hate you, you know, it's like you get all these eyes in traffic, but they also like don't want to give you money for it. So it's a battle to constantly like, you know, not have everything demonetized. I mean, it's crazy if I think about like if I didn't have YouTube demonetizing everything, like how much money I would be making. You know what I mean? Because like the views are high, but it's like YouTube's like, yeah,
Got to
no,
play by
we're-
the rule.
yeah,
Their
we're not
weird
gonna-
rules.
Do you know that when I hit 100,000 followers, you're supposed to get like a plaque from YouTube. It's like a thing that you can put. They wouldn't give it to me.
Why?
I literally wrote them a letter and they wouldn't give it to me. They said that the nature of my content, like I didn't.
You didn't actually
deserve
earn
it.
this.
Yeah,
What?
they wouldn't give it to me. I was
Wow.
like so offended.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Because
Yes.
there's plenty of people with plaques that like get their notoriety from
Yeah.
interviewing sex workers.
Right?
And
Yeah.
that's
No.
so annoying.
YouTube wouldn't give it to me.
Wow, I'm pissed for you.
YouTube, you're fucking up.
Yeah. We're coming for you.
We say on YouTube right now, I suppose.
It's fine. I yell about YouTube all the time on YouTube, so
Okay,
whatever. They
yeah.
don't care. They don't care about that. But so yeah, when I started the podcast, I was actually in like a weird place in my life. I was fired from Playboy. That's a
What?
whole other story.
Oh my God, I have so many questions.
Yeah,
I have
that's
so
a
little
whole other
time with
story.
you
And by
today.
the way, just like quick disclaimer, the people who, well, the one specific person who had me fired, no longer works in Playboy, and this is not a reflection of anybody that works at Playboy currently. I'm actually shooting for them next month. Just probably a one-time thing. Anyways, we'll see. But so I don't want to be here like fuck Playboy. But anyways, so I was fired from Playboy, and I was shooting, Twisties is like my other client that I've been shooting for like a lot, and they just kind of again like this is different people were running it, and they just pretty much dropped me. Like I went from like shooting a ton of stuff for them, and they were just like. And I have never been under contract with anybody, right? So nobody owes me anything. But when you get consistent work from somebody and then all of a sudden you get nothing, it's, surprising, especially when it happens at the same time. And so I was in this place where I was like, okay, I went from being like super busy and being, like the main photographer for like both of these sites to like literally nothing. And, I just want to also say that Twisties came back a few months later and hired me back on, like, gave me more work and gave me a raise. So it was all good. They were going through some things. Anyways, but I was in this place where I was like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like this thing that I'd always done, there didn't really seem to be a lot of work from my particular style. It seemed like glam had kind of gone out of adult work, and I don't know. I just felt like there wasn't a place for me anymore. So I was like, okay, what the fuck am I going to do? Right? Because this has been my whole life. And so I thought, okay, what else can I do? I don't want to leave the adult industry because I love it. But what else could I do? I'm like, well, there's this podcasting thing that people seem to be doing a lot of. And, I like to talk. Obviously. And
you're great at it talking.
And I know a lot of like sex workers, and I am good friends with them, and I feel like they trust me. And I've always wanted to show the world what the people that I work with are truly like, because people have a very specific idea of like what porn stars and sex workers are like. And they're generally not like that. Like I don't need to tell you guys, like there's some of the most intelligent, inspiring, funny, like business-minded, grounded people like you'll meet. Obviously there's exceptions to every rule. We're not clones, but
and generally very like nonconformist, I would say, in a lot of ways, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And also like very open and unguarded and like not full of bullshit. Because there's something about, I think, putting yourself out there in like the most vulnerable way possible that kind of strips down all of like those veneers that a lot of other people in entertainment put up, right? They're trying to like fit this certain mold, or they're trying to like be or look a certain way, and they're trying to, because they want to make sure they get this contract or that contract, so they have to, and like porn stars are generally like, nah, it's my vagina's all over the web, so like this is who I am, and I can be who I am, and I love that about them. There's so much less pretense, and so I was like, well, maybe I'll just like, I don't know, interview some people, and that was when I met Ernie, who's my sound engineer and editor. And I was like, hey, I was thinking about doing a podcast. Like, could I hire you to do? Maybe we'll do like 10 episodes, and we'll just see what happens. And I really didn't expect anything to come of it. And then I did 10 episodes, and it got like really good feedback. And so I just kept going, and now we're like 380 episodes later.
Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
And I'm like still going. So yeah, I guess it worked out.
Do you just kind of sporadically film, or do you like make sure, 380 episodes, I'm doing some math, 7 years. How often do you usually film?
So I try to really stick to a schedule of putting it out once a week, like without fail.
Mm-hmm.
The only time that I even slowed down a little bit was when I was pregnant. In the late stages of my pregnancy, before I gave birth, I released episodes every other week.
Mm-hmm.
But like as soon as I came back from maternity leave, I went into it. And now I'll take like the week of Thanksgiving off maybe, and like the week of Christmas off. But otherwise, I'm like without fail every week. I'm very like structured in the way that I work. So it's every week.
Are you type A? Do you identify with type A?
100%. Yes.
Are you an earth sign?
I don't know. I'm a Virgo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
We're all earth sign. We're all
Represent.
3: Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
My husband's a Taurus, I think.
Love that.
You guys are like
combination.
stubborn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My mom's a Taurus too.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
Wow. That's cool. And your dad was interested in astrology? Did he teach you
Yeah.
a lot about it?
He actually did like my own personalized horoscope. Based on like
cool.
the Roman.
Oh, it's the Roman one.
Based on the Roman Empire.
Based on whatever they did to come up with a very like specific. I don't remember, but I remember he like made me one. And it was pretty cool. It said I was gonna be like a king, like a queen. Like I was gonna be like this, like important
Podcasting queen.
Yeah.
and that like my children would also like be the same. I just remember those two things. I can't remember what else it was.
Wow. What was his sign?
Virgo too,
Wow. A family of Earth.
Family, I know.
Yeah.
and my brother also.
What the hell?
Yeah, and we're all very like type A, organized, structured, routine. Like, yeah.
Are you neurotypical?
What does that
Do
mean?
you have any ADHD or any?
She's giving neurotypical.
Yeah, I
Giving
know.
on top of her shit.
Yeah.
Do I have ADHD?
Yeah. I feel like no.
No.
You're like, how dare you?
No.
Yeah.
Sorry, because wait. I'm so embarrassed that I don't know.
Oh my God, don't be.
mean,
no.
Neurodivergent is like
Oh, neurodivergent is like
autism,
right?
ADHD. Some people say like
OCD.
bipolar. Yeah.
Yeah.
OCD.
Anything not neurotypical.
Dyslexia.
Basically. Yeah. It's so cool. I feel like I haven't met somebody that doesn't have ADHD in years. So I'm honored to be in your presence.
I know, and like
That's amazing.
You're like, I wish I did, but
no, I don't.
No, don't.
I don't. But like, I mean, I don't know. I also wonder, is ADHD something that people are born with, or is it the fact that we as a society just have so much media being thrown at us at all fucking time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like too much information, too much work. I mean, I think about back in the day when I first started working for my mom, right? Like before, I mean, obviously the internet was there because I started working at the beginning of her website, but we still, a lot of times we didn't get emails from people. We got phone calls and we got letters because a lot of people weren't like in that flow yet. And if we were selling a set to a magazine, we would have to ship them the slides. And it would have to go in the mail.
Whoa.
And, they would like take them and scan them at their end. And like all of this stuff would take a really long time. And people, didn't call you after 5 p.m. because nobody had cell phones really,
Right.
you know? So your office phone, you weren't in the office after 5. So when you went home, you were at home and you were with your family. Now it's like if someone doesn't email you back like within 2 hours, why are
Mhm.
you ignoring me? I have people text me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's fine because I have do not disturb on, so it's okay if you text me. I'll see it in the morning. But like,
But why are they texting you at 3 o'clock?
but true,
Are you okay?
true. Yes, that I always do. Like think like.
Like you have your boundaries, but they don't have their boundaries. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I also like, even if I'm up at 3 in the morning for some weird reason, maybe I can't sleep and I think of something, I'm not texting you at 3 in the morning because I don't want you to think I'm a crackhead.
Yeah, same.
Like I'm waiting to text you, or I'm like emailing you and I'm putting it on like send later.
Oh.
So they don't think
Hello.
I'm emailing
I
you
know.
at 3 in
That's
the
a
morning.
thing.
That's amazing. Wow, just automatically better boundaries back in the day before.
But it was just like there was no way to cross those boundaries.
Yeah.
We didn't have the technology
Right.
to reach people immediately.
Mhm.
And now there's this expectation of getting back right away. And
Yeah.
I like live in that world very much these days. And it's hard for me to set boundaries. I've gotten a lot better since I had a kid because now I'm just like, all right, like I have a child now. So
Mhm.
I'm not answering a call at 11. I'm not working on a Saturday. I mean, I'm doing a shareholders meeting on Sunday, but I have to. But generally, you know what I mean? But it's like, it's crazy. Like we live in a world with like no boundaries anymore, like no work boundaries, no, because technology has just allowed us to like infiltrate everybody's
Yeah.
lives at all moments of the
I
day.
think we need to have some sort of more education around like discipline and like and crafting your life around not using technology at certain times and like how to do that, because like that's been very beneficial in my life, and I feel like it is just such a big invasive issue, and it's
Mhm.
all for these companies to make more money basically, and it's just
Yeah.
not okay.
We just like should not be that accessible.
No.
And we're truly not.
And
but,
you
like,
have to make that decision at the end of the day for yourself, because like
Yeah.
no one at this point in this day and age is going to like help you with that really, you know,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone just takes everything so much more personally. And when you were talking about like it took, a week to get the pictures out, and it just gives you time to like slowly
Mm.
process your experiences of life and like slowly process the projects that you're working on, because you have to wait. And now it's like up, airdrop, up, blah blah blah, oop, download, upload, just like constantly and immediately, and it just makes everything go by so fast. And it's like, are we truly absorbing the lives that we're living?
Right.
You know?
Not at all. It's
Not
like
at all.
mindful eating, like mindful living. Like, are we doing that? I mean,
Yeah.
we're not. We're not. And I find myself in that position all the time. I'll, reach some point, some goal, and I should be happy and I should be like marinating in that success, and I should be like, okay, I've gotten here. Nope, I'm thinking about the next thing
Mhm.
and the next thing. And it's hard to like sit back and be present. Have you ever read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now?
Mhm.
So there's this passage in there that I think about all the time. And it talks about when he goes and like visits a meadow with a friend, and it's like a really beautiful meadow. Maybe it's a waterfall, some kind of nature. And she's sitting there and she's looking at it and she said, God, this is so beautiful. I can't wait to come back here again. And it's like, she's not in the now. She's not in like, I'm here
Mhm.
in the now. I'm experiencing this. This is wonderful. It's like already looking into the future of experiencing what you're experiencing right now,
Right?
right?
Mm.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
But we do that. I do the same thing. I'm very bad about it. Which I think is like also why I love photography so much, because photography is this opportunity to capture and immortalize this moment in time
Mhm.
that will never happen again. And that's what I like about it. I like capturing moments in time and like holding on to them, because I have like a great fear of the passage of time and like things ending and death and non-existence and like all that kind of stuff. So I'm always like trying to hold on to all of these things, and photography is like a great way to do that.
Yeah. I feel like I'm less scared of dying and I'm more scared of forgetting my life. Like I think I had some grandparents that had dementia, and I also like watched The
Mm.
Notebook as a adolescent and was like,
Repeatedly.
that's gonna happen to me.
Yeah.
So I gotta write down all my shit. And now like I have so many completed journals, and it's like I'm writing down everything I'm doing every day because I'm like, I'm probably gonna forget. And I wanna be able to look back, or at least my family to be able to. I don't know. It's just probably a part of the OCD, honestly. But
No, but I think that that's really smart.
Yeah.
That's really, and your kids, or you're like, I don't know if you're ever going to have kids, or, but you're, I don't know, like other
Mhm.
family members down the line would really enjoy that.
yeah.
You know, like it's cool to. I mean, my grandmother kept all of her letters and stuff like that. I have like so much family, like photos and journals and all that kind
Mhm.
of stuff, and it's really cool
Special.
to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't write by hand as much anymore. And
Mhm.
I just find it to be such a good way to process with my brain and everything. Like
Yeah.
just using your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like this book I'm reading right now talks about how humans, like, basically we invented math and writing as this way to like offload parts of our brain, essentially.
Mm.
And that really is how journaling feels. It's like, oh, this is just not in my cluttering my headspace anymore. It's
Yeah.
farted out into the ether.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that really useful. So I'm in like a 12-step program because I'm sober. And one of the things that I do a lot is I do like, we call it like a mini fourth step. And it's like this column situation. And like if you're upset or resentful at somebody, in one column you write your resentment, and in the next one you write the cause. So you write who you're or what you're resentful at. Next one's the cause. What does it affect? And there's like different categories. There's like your finances, personal relationships, ambitions, sexual relationships, that kind of thing. And then the last column, which is the key, is what is your part? Right? Like, what are you doing in this resentment? Like, that is creating this,
Fueling it.
fueling
Yeah.
it. And it's like, am I being selfish? Am I being self-centered? Am I being dishonest? Am I being, oh my gosh, what's the word? Am I being inconsiderate? And all of these things. And it's a really great way to like unpack these
Yeah.
feelings that you have.
And like it just unties the knot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then you look at it, and then you write out like more of it. And then another idea is that you have these specific character defects that you write that are maybe associated with your feelings about that. And then the more you do this, you see the same character defects pop up again and again and again. And you see like, oh, this is something that I have a problem with, right? Like entitlement is like an issue that I have sometimes. And I'll see that pop up, and I'll be like, oh, I feel this way. I have this resentment against this person because I actually feel entitled to this thing. And I'm actually not entitled to this thing. Like none of us are entitled to anything really. And that's something that I have to work on. And once you see that like you can change your own perception of the world and how you behave and how you treat people, then like it's crazy how everything else changes.
Because you have that control back.
Yeah, that's the
over
only thing you
yourself.
can control
Yeah.
is how you react to your environment. You can't control your environment. You can't control like other people.
How long have you been sober now?
I've been sober this round 5 years. I had 7 years previously. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
It is.
Wow. So like right before COVID, basically, is
So I got sober initially in 2008,
Mhm.
and then I was sober for 7 years. And then I fell off the wagon, as they say. Ironically, I accidentally ate an edible, which was, yeah. But look, everything happens for a reason, right? And like once it triggered that little demon in my fucking brain,
You were back?
it was back.
Oh my
Whoa.
God.
And I wasn't like, I had like I wasn't doing sobriety really anymore. I wasn't like connecting with my community and like doing all the things that like you kind of need to do to like keep yourself accountable. I wasn't doing that
Because you'd
anymore.
been sober for 7 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, that's the problem with addicts and alcoholics and why a lot of people do relapse. I personally believe, of course, it's different for everybody, is that like it's they call it, it's a disease, and your brain behaves in a different way than other people's. And it is not something that you can like cure. Like with one, you don't go to like a couple meetings, or you do go to rehab and then you're like, I'm cured, everything's fine, I can go back to being the way I was. That's not possible. You have to completely change the way you look at things. You have to change your life. You have to change your behavior. And, you know, even then it's like, it's a daily, like, cause it's always waiting.
Always your brain.
It's always your brain. Yeah. Your brain's like, wait, it's like there's this weird part of your brain that's looking to destroy you. Which is so bizarre.
Yeah.
Right. Cause if you think about it, like when I was like active in my alcoholism, like I'm not, I mean, I guess I am a little crazy. We're all a little crazy, but I'm not like, I am like a very rational person. Like if I don't ingest anything, I'm pretty normal. I don't have crazy mood swings. Like I don't go off the rails. I'm not on any medication. But the minute that I start, you know, taking drugs or alcohol, it just like completely shifts my personality. But there's still like the regular Holly in here going like, what the fuck are you doing? And then there's this brain who's like, I don't care. Like it's not even talking actually. There's no like conversation here. It's just like driving my body and like driving me to the liquor store and like it has control of my hands, like picking up the vodka bottle. It's fucking weird.
Whoa.
And so, you know, I just like, I can't let that thing come alive again, but it's still like scurrying around in my brain, like looking for a,
It's like, feed me.
yeah. It's like, it's looking for like a little chink in the armor.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you just gotta
Wow.
kind
Just
of like
waiting.
keep it at bay with, you know.
I'm like picturing this little Holly goblin
Yeah.
inside of your brain.
Yeah, totally. One of my ex-boyfriends used to call me Molly when I would drink too much
Molly.
because I became a different person. They're like, "Oh, here's Molly. Molly's
my
back." Because I
God.
was like,
Yeah.
I was unrecognizable.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was crazy.
That is wild. I mean, I think we all have had experiences like seeing that happen in someone
Mm-hmm.
and just like, whoa, like you're such a different person
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoon or like just before you start drinking or whatever.
It's so surreal when you're like, that part of me is not me,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a part of me.
But it is.
It's so
Yeah,
strange.
but it
and
is.
it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really it's crazy. But you know what? Like I'm grateful for that because it has forced me to really sit back and like look at my life and like change my way of thinking and like change, you know, my coping mechanisms, and it's made me a better person. It's given me like a lot more compassion for people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't have compassion for people with mental illness before I really experienced this because I'd be like, oh, they're just crazy, you know, and like write them off. But it's like, I mean, it's all like a mental illness of a different kind. It's like, it's a terrible, terrifying thing to live with.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be crazy. Nobody wants to be violent and horrible and like let down their loved ones and like make a fool of themselves and lose their job and end up on the street. And, you know, nobody like, that's not like things that people strive for, but it's like a very powerful force that like can take over.
Yeah. And like, I guess every day that people don't let that win or give that goblin the megaphone is just a huge success because there's so many things in this world that could send you down that path. Like there's so much suffering in this world. There's so much inequality. There's so many things that could just make you depressed as hell and want to escape out of here. In the fastest way to feel better sometimes is self-medicating. So it's just a very real and very constant thing that's happening.
And even for people who aren't addicts, it's still a very
Absolutely.
similar struggle
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I think. Just being alive and figuring out how to navigate this world in a way that is fulfilling and
Yeah. I mean,
sustainable.
yeah. I mean, like we all have our coping mechanisms and we all have unhealthy ones, right? Just some of us have ones that
Derailed the fuck out of you.
yeah, like really like very, you
Yeah.
know,
Impact you a
Will-
little bit more.
yeah, like, will, you know, get you to drive off a cliff into a fucking ravine or, you know.
Have you
like-
rapping in front of a police officer buying a hotel room that you
Yeah.
don't really want to buy?
But it's like we all like
real
struggle
story?
with coping with life and we all like, you know, try to find a way to escape. And, you know, the easiest way out is the one that we're often going to seek because we're survivalists, right? So, you know, and like when I'm feeling shitty, like I would love to have a drink because like that feeling of relief that it brings, at least for me, it's like this immediate like, right? But I can't do that because that leads two very bad things. So instead of me being able to find this like moment of escapism, I have to do something like the journaling, which is like a lot more work. It's a lot more time, and you don't feel better immediately afterwards. You know, you don't like finish that journal entry. You're like, oh, I'm fine now.
Mhm.
You know, it might take a day or a couple days to process, but then you realize later, like, oh, I feel better because I processed that. But it's not that quick, like escapist route that we like to take.
Yeah. When you first got sober, did you start craving a lot of sweets?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sugar was like a big,
Yeah.
and it was funny too. I started behaving strangely with that too. Where I would like, so one of the things that I used to do is I used to love drinking in the bath, right? Like that was my thing. And when I was trying to get sober the second time, and you know, like I say, I fell off the wagon for 4.5 years, but I still had like large chunks of sobriety in there because I never stopped like going to meetings and trying to get sober because I was like, I cannot go down this path again. Like I'm not going to ruin my life. I've built up a business. Like I have all these things. Like I'm not throwing it all away. So I would get like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. But you know, something would happen. One of them was when Trump got elected. I relapsed that night.
God.
That's fair.
When we entered an alternate dimension for the first time.
Man. Sorry if you have any like Trump viewers, but it's not his fault. I didn't cope with the news very well.
Apologizing to the Trump viewers.
So when I was trying to get sober the second time, I would like get little bottles of alcohol, and I would hide them in the bathroom, right? And then I would go and take a bath, which I like to do like every night, and then I would like drink them in the bath and like hide them. My husband had to break down the door and pull me out of the bath twice before I got sober. Poor guy. I don't know like why he stuck around. It was kind of remarkable because we met like when I was trying to get sober, and he like stayed with me through all that.
Oh my
bullshit.
God.
He loves you
He had just met his
unconditionally.
age. It was actually pretty remarkable. He
Yeah.
was like, this is the
Guardian
only,
angel
he's like, this is
energy.
the only thing wrong with you. He's like, and you're gonna overcome it. And I was like,
Oh my God, I'm gonna
makes me
start
wanna
crying.
cry.
yeah, it was like incredible.
That's
We've been
so
together 7 years now.
sweet.
So anyways,
Wow. How did you meet him?
Tinder.
Oh my God.
Stop
I love a Tinder success story.
it. Wow.
I know, not expected at all.
Do you remember what his bio said?
Not exactly, but I remember the photos because I was really on the fence about it. I was like, I don't know about this guy. I think there was a picture of him with like a shark, like he had caught like a big shark, like he's like likes to fish. And I was just kind of like, I don't know, man. It looks like redneck, sort of like he fishes. What the hell is this? And I don't know. There were just like things about his profile. I was like, I don't know about this guy. He wears camo sometimes. I'm like, And yeah, and then we went on a date, and even like the first date, like I liked him, but it wasn't like this incredible, like, oh my God, this is a man for me. Like I'd just gotten out of a relationship, and I didn't really trust men. And, you know, I was looking for the red flags. I was looking hard for the red flags. And there would be things that he would say, and I was like, you're so full of shit. You know, like I remember, I think next to his bed was like the 4 Love Languages book or something. And I was like, he planted this. I was like, this is nonsense. And then I remember like the first date that we went on after the second date, he invited me over to his place so he could make me pasta from scratch. And I was like, this guy does this for everybody. He fucking makes this is the pasta from scratch routine. I've seen this before. Like this is bullshit. And then I tried to have sex with him that night, and he like wouldn't let me.
Oh my God.
He was like, I think you're just, what we have is really special, and we should wait. And I was like,
You're like, he does this to everyone.
I was like, you have a micro penis, don't you? That's what it is. You don't want me to see it. I'm like, you have a micro penis, don't you? He doesn't have a micro penis.
Yay.
We did have sex on I think the next day, because I was like, I'm not waiting. Don't be silly.
Yeah, stop playing.
Like, you don't need to play this game with me. Like, I'm not that kind of girl.
You're like, I like to test before I buy. Okay.
Yeah.
I was a newborn and hustler.
Yeah, I
Wow.
But yeah, and he ended up being like, I don't know. He ended up being the guy that he said he was,
Yeah.
which was crazy to me because I was, he's putting on a front. They all do, and then like the curtain drops, and then they're not that person, but he is that person.
There are
Thank God.
there just are a lot of good men out there, but they're just not as loud as the bad ones, you know?
Yeah. He's not. He's very like that's why like I don't say his name like, on my podcast or anything. Like he's a very private person. He's totally like fine with me being who I am, obviously. But he's not somebody who like likes to be in the spotlight. He just,
Oh, I love that in a man. I really do.
Yeah. And I think also too, like if we're the kind of people that like we want to be the star, it's hard when you're in a relationship with both people want to be the star, you know what I mean? So
I agree.
I think we complement each other in that way.
Well,
so sweet.
frick, I feel like we could just keep steamrolling.
I
but
know. I feel like we just started.
I know.
I know we like didn't even talk. Did we even talk about porn?
That's fine.
Right. We're over it. But Holly, it's been amazing having you on. I'm so thrilled that you met us for this episode.
It's been so enlightening, honestly.
Yes, it has.
I love a wholesome episode talking about love, death, life.
I feel like you guys can get this episode fully monetized.
We're
that is my gift for you.
Well, thank you so much for the money and your presence. And everyone go listen to her podcast. It's Holly Randall Unfiltered. You probably already listened to it, but do it again, I guess.
Thank you so much for coming here to talk with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you sure you want to post that?